Greetings. My name is Jeremy Bentley. I'm the CEO and founder of Smartlogic. I want to talk today about enterprise intelligence. It's very related to big data. It involves information, enterprise information. It's about really operationalizing enterprise information and turning it into actionable intelligence. So we took the beginning and the end and called it enterprise intelligence. Purpose today, introduce myself. We're looking for a key industrial partner in Japan. We can talk about what that shape and size that comes to, but 80% of my business is in the United States. 80% of my customers are global 2,000 companies. And we'll go through a little bit about who Smartlogic is and explain why I think there's a 30-year change that's about to occur. And I'll use some case studies to show you why I think that's going to happen. But I think that 30-year change is actually a confluence of about 3 different technologies all coming together at the same time. The first is artificial intelligence-based semantics. Right? That's what we do. The second is the change from relational to post-relational graph-based databases. Right? And the third is the open link data movement, which is about people sharing resources company to company in public and using that information for their personal business interests. It is a collaborative work, there's a change in technology going on, and there's an AI understanding of language that is making it all possible. Put all of that together and you get to enterprise intelligence. So here's our story. I started the business in 2006. We got our first US customer, because I originally came from London, we're now based in San Jose. First US customer in 2009. Our first US customer actually was NASA. Could you please organise 50 years of information to do with manned spaceflight by mission, by project, by location, which is an interesting concept when you think about world-based road maps, because their locations are completely different, by project, by personnel, by all that sort of stuff. Okay? Being British at the time, it took rather a lot to land them because they couldn't believe there wasn't this company, it couldn't be done in America. Anyway, we then bought an American competitor in 2011. We spent all the money we'd made by that time redeveloping, because we're an engineering company. 10 years on one platform was long enough. We've now re-engineered the whole platform for the next decade, because technology is like that. Right? You would quite often look at companies fail because the original technology is hindering their success because it's got too old. So we have re-engineered it, and in 2015 we launched it. We breathed a sigh of relief because our customers were people like Amazon solving the biggest metadata problem there is in the world, NBC trying to classify all the world's news in real time, things like that. But those are the first customers of the new system. We're now at about 250 projects globally. In terms of, we grew 23% last year, about 11 million, give or take. We're profitable. Okay, we are. If you take my last quarter, we're running at about $15-16 million a year now, so it's faster growth than the previous year. The really interesting thing is that the term and subscription business grew 275% last year. Most people say, oh yes, Jeremy, that's because it started from a small number. And actually now I'm going, no, it's not, because this year it's now 450% with a bigger number. So it's now really starting to change. And the reason for that is that quite a lot of our customers, the Fortune 2000, Fortune 1000 companies, have their big iron is on-premise. But actually this AI semantics, graph database, open link data movement is appealing to smaller companies or departments, and then you get a much longer tail, and they can't do it sitting on their big servers on-premise, they want to do it on the cloud. So we're starting to get access to a much bigger market that previously wasn't there. So that's what's happening. And our platform is exactly that. It's enterprise initiatives across all industries, and we'll see who they are. So the point about this is, what if you could take information and make it intelligent? Right? I don't think that business people thank us for saying, oh, it's very good, we've got our balance of our customers' balance sitting in that relational database, but we've got their letter of complaint sitting in this content management system. Right? It is clearly enterprise information, but it isn't intelligent because nobody can answer the question, who's got a balance of over $10,000, who wrote a letter of complaint last week? Right? That's the sort of thing that business likes to have answered. And of course, we in technology went, well, we've got this structured data, we've got this unstructured data. They don't mix. In fact, you can't ask a PDF a question. Right? And that was our founding concept for Smartlogic, was you should be able to ask a PDF a question. You can ask a database a question, so why can't you ask a PDF a question? Well, clearly because it's batch and brittle. So when you start to think that way, you start to see, how do you tame this information complexity, the simple complexity of, structured and unstructured? How do you discover relationships so voice of the customer can work? How do you gain insights into products? How do you, if you can start to unify your information from data, wherever it is, that we can mix it in enterprise intelligence as opposed to just enterprise data. So the answer to this is a semantics, i.e. meaning, and a semantic platform which uses AI. I think everything these days uses AI, but actually the AI, we're very specific about what kind of AI it is and the role that semantics has in AI. And I'll talk a bit about that later. So that's what we do. We provide a platform to operationalize structured and unstructured enterprise information into actionable intelligence. It's applied to enterprise initiatives such as improving customer experience, such as records management. I don't know if anyone's familiar with some serious records management issues, but if you're an oil company and you have to maintain your drills and they're under the ocean, the way you maintain them is you put your crew in a submarine, and that submarine goes with all the tools and the equipment and all the documentation and all the trained personnel in a submarine to the bottom of the ocean. They fix the drill head, which actually is not a small tap. They're 10 stories tall and they're usually unique. And then they fix it, and then they go back, having fixed it and maintained it, back to the surface. But if they put the wrong spanner in the submarine, or they don't get the right person who maintained it last time to write what they did properly, then that very expensive exercise of maintaining that drill is a records management issue. Right? It's not. It manifests itself as an expensive trip in a submarine, but actually it's about, do we have the parts in our SAP system? Have we got the inventory documented? Have we got the design specs sitting in our CAD system? Have we got the maintenance records sitting in SharePoint? Have we got the, right? And so bringing all of this stuff together so you make sure that the right people are in with the right tools, with the right equipment to put in the right submarine and sent to the right well, geo, is a enterprise intelligence issue. Right? And this confluence of the three technologies I'm talking about is what answers that question if you're in oil and gas. And we have some customers who do that. It's a platform that focuses on industry-specific business problems, right? But it is the same, whether you're using it in pharmaceuticals or in oil and gas or in high-tech manufacturing, it is the same software. The thing that is different is the language. The thing that is different in any business is the semantics, the language, the meaning, the context of the domain that you're trying to solve for. Okay, so here's some of my customers. I'm very proud of them. What is the same thing about them all? They are all information-intensive industries. Right? They are information-intensive, and they rely on information in order to make a profit, or for a duty of care, or for product innovation. Right? So it's financial services, life sciences, media and publishing, healthcare, high-tech and industrial equipment, retail, and intelligence and security. I can talk about any of the use cases except the lower ones. Right? I'm happy to do so. I'm here for the week, so just come and find me. There's a postcard if you want to come for a presentation. Okay? But my point is that, and very specifically where we fit, is it typically fits into a compliance or a risk assessment or a contract analysis kind of a use case, right? And there are some very specific elements around these. This is not a statistical reasoning activity that a lot of AI is about. This is a compliance, legal scrutiny activity that if you're going to bring automation to scrutiny under a legal framework, you have to have certain rules. And one of them is you need to be able to repeat in front of a judge how the AI engine actually came up with a decision, Your Honour. Right? This is how it has to go. So we'll talk a little bit about how that happens. But my point of showing that slide is just to show, we think the science experiment is over. Right? We've proven with a lot of large American companies that they use this for mission-critical applications, and we now wish to come to Japan and do that with the Japanese companies. So that's my interest here. So clearly there is an economic imperative, right? The reality of replacing lower order work tasks or partially automating higher order logic steps is something that we have proven using those customers to be the case. Okay? So we're not saying that everyone's job is going to be replaced by AI. What we're looking at is slowly building more and more automation into a work task that replaces the human manual, expensive, low-order work function. Right? So that's the role of this. This is not about replacing people's jobs. It's about replacing the tasks that they do within their jobs. And until we get our head around that, our AI probably should be called artificial stupidity, because the moment you come out of context is everything. And the moment you come out of context, there is no understanding of the meaning. Right? So we're trying to just focus on low-order automation, higher-order automation, little by little, with the most complex automation is what human beings do most best. And the point is that the technology breakthrough in semantics is understanding that human language and domain context. And human language and domain context previously was the monopoly of human beings. And this disruption is because that monopoly, that human being monopoly, can be snatched, and units of work, not all work, but units of work, given to software. Okay? So the software processes at a faster rate. The software does not go out to lunch. The software is consistent, right, in its application. Right? And we see significantly higher levels of consistency and quality. So an example, an insurance company underwrites something and the first thing they do is they send that underwriting contract off usually to a help desk somewhere in an outsourced location, and someone says they've mandated 20 data points to come out of this contract that needs to go in. It's the start of the data creation process for their risk assessment. You could call it a records management problem because it's a contract, a PDF, and some human has to read, stare and compare at this contract, pull out the data parts that the insurance company has said they want to see. Right? Now, the SLA on this is usually somewhere between 10 to 17 days, depending on which insurance company you are on, for turning around. So this is a risk assessment that is after the event. Right? Now, if we could do not 20 data points, but if we can get the software to do 300 data points. So here's this concept. This is what I want to talk about. It's this confluence. Right? The confluence of AI, semantics, post-relational, and thing. And this is maybe, hopefully is helpful. Right? When the pharaohs were ruling Egypt, they wrote their information on paper. Right? And we managed to do this system until about 1950, when we started to code bits of data out of our paper and put them into mainframe systems, hierarchical databases. So that was 60 years ago. 30 years ago, we invented, and if you remember all this COBOL and all these things, if you wanted to change your inventory report, fetch me a COBOL program. That's a batch and brittle database, right? Fetching a COBOL programmer does not show flexibility. The thing that turned the 30 years ago into a real-time and flexible, self-describing data was relational. 30 years ago we invented the relational database. Inventing is, you could argue it was earlier, but the businesses adopted SQL. SQL is a real-time and flexible self-describing system. You can ask a database a question. And that led to big data, it led to OLAP, it led to business intelligence, and 20% of all of our information is sitting in this universe. What happened on the other side was the 80% that was sitting in paper stayed in paper and went into filing cabinets, and slowly, still batch and brittle, it goes into search engines and it goes into records management and content management. But actually, if you want to go and find all your letters of complaint, you have to get yourself a SharePoint expert to put in a new metadata column in your content management system that is still batch and brittle, right? So the thing is, you need something to turn the content-based data into intelligent data. And we call that content intelligence. That's all. But the real thing that's happening is at the same time that we're able now to ask a PDF a question, right? Just like we can ask a database a question, at the same time you're doing that, we also have a change in data technology, which is from SQL to post-relational or graph. Now, do we know why graph is useful? Graph is useful because you're not bounded by the schema. Right? In IT, we do our data analysis by saying, I need to capture that data so I can ask a question. I put that data into schema. Right? So business doesn't work like that either. Business says, how many people died in an ambulance on the way to A&E? Well, 3. How many people died in an ambulance on the way to A&E when a paramedic was on board? Well, I can't tell you that because you never asked me to capture the paramedic schema, so I can't answer the question. So SQL is very schema constrained, and it breaks when you think of something you haven't been capturing. And graph gets rid of that constraint. So now we have a much more iterative analytical database engine called Graph or NoSQL or triple stores or whatever you like. But that is the change for that. Take the semantics, and you can take all of your data out of your PDFs and shove it into a graph database. Now you have an analytical data source that has got all of your data in it, not just your data. Okay. So now we have a revolution. And then very specifically, what the semantics is doing is it's unifying that information between data and content. It's harmonizing structured data for use by big data for use for analytics. It's looking at things like business intelligence and extracting data. Because actually, do you know where most fraud gets done in banking? It gets done in the special instructions section of the payments. What is special instructions? Ignore the previous controls, please pay this person. That is a special instruction. That is text, right? The unanswerable question is, how many of our text payments have special instructions that look fraudulent? You can't do that with a database query. You can only do that by examining by hand, by human eye, the special instruction. So, stuff like that. That's semantics. Semaphore enriches the search engine so that the search engine can put things into the right buckets. And it augments content management systems, so you don't have to get a SharePoint programmer to go and redo the metadata whenever you need to change your content management system columns. So that's where it fits. And then very specific, because I'm running out of time now, we need to enrich information assets with metadata for process automation. That's the AI human work step processing. We need to extract facts and entities out of for relationships for better analytics. and we need to harmonise all information sources for key business insights without doing extract, transform, and load. That was another big change. So anyway, we got some recognition. We got put in the Magic Quadrant for Metadata Management by Gartner as a leader this year. And actually the output of all of this AI-driven semantic metadata got put into the visionary stage for Gartner's Magic Quadrant for Insight Engines. So we were quite happy. My reason for showing you who my customers are and who my analysts have graded us and all this stuff is I'm here for a purpose, and that is to find a business partner in Japan. And I have some use cases, and how much time have I got? So we have use cases in pharmaceuticals. This is a multinational pharmaceutical company that needed to harmonise their vocabulary. Their vocabulary is a remarkable list of acronyms that includes molecules, genetics, chemicals, mathematical formulas, all the language of pharmaceuticals, and they need to bring that all together in their research department, otherwise they will slow down research and it costs a lot of money. Pharma. This is call center operations, pulling out consistent metadata out of the diverse information assets from internal and external systems. And this is a retail bank, sentiment analysis on call progress in real time at that moment, analysing and extracting the call log data, providing an answer to the unanswerable. That unanswerable question, how many of my customers have got a balance of over $10,000 who wrote a letter of complaint in the last week, is finally answered, right? 60 years after we started coding our data into structured and unstructured data. So that's what I've referred to as enterprise intelligence. I hope it's been a useful use of your time to hear a little bit about the Smartlogic story. I really look forward to meeting you later.